Who are we? You sure you want to know?
I'm Sean,
And I'm Peter.
and we didn't even get the toaster.
Even though we're back to teaching piano lessons.
Really? We swear we are.
Very convincing.
Well, welcome to so much. Let me say that again. Sorry, got a little
Sure.
tentacle tongue twister tied there.
We're keeping this in. That was good.
Welcome to our Sam Raimi Spider-Man podcast. So much to tell. Pizza time.
Where we deliver your Sam Raimi Spider-Man podcast in 29 minutes, or you don't have to support us on Patreon.
Or you get a free order of breadsticks. Not redeemable for an order of breadsticks.
And we're really going to try this time. Mr. Aziz has been really breathing down our neck. So we kind of want to take a look at our friendly neighborhood doctor, Doctor Octopus, and try to maybe figure out what life is like. Just everyday normal life is like for someone who's got
4 mechanical arms welded right onto his body.
What's that gotta be like? You know, I'll kick this off right off the bat, Sean, by saying one thing I think we can extrapolate about Doc Ock. He's a stomach sleeper. Maybe a side sleeper.
I wonder how does he? Maybe he sleeps vertically. You know, maybe he built some sort of apparatus so that he can hang like a bat. I don't know.
He is something of a scientist himself. Maybe
yeah.
made some sort of special contraption. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's the same technology that he used to help him sneak around unobserved with 4 metal tentacles from, his peer laboratory to all the way standing directly in front of a bank vault.
Yeah.
Just standing there staring menacingly, at a big bank vault in front of security who probably shouldn't have let him get that far.
Well, but what could they have done to stop him, though? I mean, the guards do try to intervene and stop the robbery, and he just brushes them aside like they're dust.
I mean, look how suspicious he looks. He's got the sunglasses, the hat, the trench coat. He's just staring at a bank vault.
Oh, yeah, that's a red flag, right there.
On a supposedly more serious note, I suppose we can extract from that there is some way that he can retract his tentacles, like to some extent that I guess he can blend in relatively easily. I mean, we kind of quick cut in the movie, so we don't have to dwell on like how he's fitting those 4 tentacles into his trench coat. But I guess we can extrapolate.
Kind of like a slinky almost, where, maybe they can condense and then they can extend when they need to, but then they can shrink when they need to.
Yeah, there is some extension in retracting. So, they it might not be too much to impose on you as you're going about your daily business. What do you think, Sean? Like, well, how would you function with this setup?
I mean, the problem is, the inhibitor chip that has been compromised.
True.
He's receiving this very sinister influence from the tentacles. Now, assuming that the tentacles were benign and they were just 4 extra limbs, more or less, that, otherwise you control them like your normal appendages, then yeah, I think, that it could be helpful in some ways. Carrying your grocery bags, for example.
Absolutely, absolutely. Aside from the slightly murderous tendencies of the arms, like you said, I don't think it's too bad of a setup, really. Because we see auto-chilling as he works on his sciencey stuff.
Mm-hmm.
His arms light his cigar.
Yeah.
Open up his packages from Amazon for him. It seems pretty neat. I kind of imagine him, like, sleeping in on a Saturday, while his arms are like folding his laundry, getting his coffee ready, pressing his shirt for him, cutting the crust off his sandwich for lunch, whatever. It seems like a pretty sweet deal, apart from the murder part.
So you think that Otto Octavius is a guy that takes the time to iron his clothes before he wears them?
No, of course not. But his arms do, because they care about him. And they don't want him going out like that.
Professors, by and large, have a reputation for a more casual way of dressing, I would say.
You're right. Well, not to get too much into it, but in the opening scenes of the novelization of Spider-Man 2, where we see Doc Ock and Kirk Connors chatting together, Otto is depicted as very kind of like out of it and like not really like, he doesn't have like the money on him. He's got his arms full of stuff. He can't pay the cab driver. Kirk Connors has to come over and kind of like bewilder him.
That's interesting.
Because he's got so much going on. He's there to give like a talk or something on campus.
Well, that's interesting. That's just like Peter Parker in that movie, who just seems so...
Well, yeah, I'm sure it's not a coincidence, the parallel. But kind of to your point, like I do kind of picture him being like so concerned with, doing science for the greater good. You're right. Like, he doesn't really have time to do these little
That's what I'm saying.
things like that.
He's not a guy that's coming in dressed to the nines. He's not wearing a freshly dry cleaned and pressed suit with, a crisp tie. He's not doing any of that. That's more of a Norman thing.
You're right. That's true. He does have a pretty slick jacket, though, that he likes to wear as Doc Ock. And also, I got to say, Otto, pretty early adopter of AI,
He saw the future 20 years ago.
He did. I mean, all things considered, he did pretty good. I mean, he practically created life as a byproduct of him trying to create unlimited power, free, waste-free energy. And along the way, he made life by accident. Like, that's pretty wild.
So, getting into what does Dr. Octavius do for fun, or how does he spend his time? So we talked about Norman before, and we kind of get a sense that even before the incident in which he got his enhanced abilities, Norman, we got the sense that he seemed like a pretty grouchy, miserable, workaholic, lonely, bitter sort of man. He doesn't seem like there's really a warm and fuzzy side to him.
No.
But I think it's the complete opposite for Dr. Octavius. We see him clearly has a very loving marriage, very good relationship with his wife. They, have this wonderful banter between them. It's just a very different, very different dynamic.
Very comfortable. And we talked about this a little bit in our No Place Like Home episode, where we talked about like the set design, but it's the complete opposite. I mean, Norman's penthouse is cavernous and kind of cold. And if anything, the picture of his wife on the wall highlights her absence, highlights the absence of people in this house. Whereas the Octavius's house, the Octavii, the Octavi, they're, it's very lived in and warm, and they're sitting around for tea, and the two of them are there. And you're right. It's very, family centric. They feel, happy. They feel content.
They seem a lot more like Aunt May and Uncle Ben.
Absolutely, yeah.
Than Norman does in any sense.
So maybe they like to do things to get.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
I know. Hang on. No, I'm gonna just. All right, fine. I'm sorry, Sean. These mechanical arms I built to help me edit the podcast want me to move on to the next segment. We can circle back around, but they feel like it'd be better if we move to our spider survey right now.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that. And they're handing me the results of a poll that we conducted on X, the erstwhile Twitter, where we asked you spider fans out there, would you rather be fused to Doc Ock's powerful tentacles or have access to Peter 1's dynamic iron spider pincers? And we saw those go mono, in No Way Home. And I thought that was sort of an interesting question. And I guess everybody out there did too, because the votes were split right down the middle, 50-50 between the Start Tech and Doc Ock's arms. And, because I think that, the AI and power of Doc Ock's arms give them more functionality and usefulness, as we sort of discussed, that, even during everyday, normal, mundane things, they're kind of useful to have. But they are a bit more obtrusive than the, little nano Stark Tech arms that can pop in and out. But, like, I don't know if those are, like, super helpful unless you need, like, extra leverage for something, or unless you're fighting somebody with 4 extra arms, And I don't know how often most of the spider fans out there are going to come across that. What do you think, Sean? I can't remember what we said, but, like, as kind of annoying as it is to have these arms, it's kind of helpful.
They're powerful, but they're not very useful. And that kind of puts it in the same category as, say, like, a nuclear weapon. It's very powerful, but it's not really something that's very useful on a daily basis. And,
how do you shower? How do you shower with them?
I don't know. I assume if they can withstand heat that is essentially that of the sun, I would imagine that they're waterproof.
How do you fit in the shower? Does Doc Ock just, like, run himself through a car wash? This seems like that'd be the easiest thing.
Probably. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I got to say, Sean, for one thing, I'm actually starting to really regret building these mechanical arms to help me edit the podcast.
More trouble than they're worth.
More trouble than they're worth. Between you and me, they don't even do their job half the time. Can you believe that? They spend most of their time watching arm wrestling on pay-per-view. Oh, thanks for letting me do that, Sean.
Sucker born every minute for that minute.
But yeah, to the point you were making earlier, he does seem like he has a pretty well-rounded life, with his family, his wife. He feels a sense of purpose.
Very much so.
What he does for the greater good of the world, his job, his career, it's very fulfilling because he's trying to give back to the world, but he's doing it in a way that, I've heard it said like, sometimes it's not what you're doing, it's who you're doing it with.
Mm-hmm.
And who better than, the love of your life?
Yeah.
So
that's true. That's what I'm saying. He seems like a pretty overall happy guy before all of these terrible things happen to him. But that being said, these terrible things don't just happen randomly. He does sort of put all this into motion with his, as he aptly sees it, his hubris, his pride.
Flew too close to the sun.
Yeah. Peter tells him like, well, are you sure you have these calculations right? And he's almost offended. Like, how many times have I told you this? Like, I've looked over these how many times? Like, this is my life's work. Like, how could I possibly make a mistake here?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to blame him, when you are that confident. It's probably easy to get that confident about something that you've dedicated your life to, but
that's also a problem because, that's where they get the term tunnel vision, or I guess in this case, tentacle tunnel vision. It's like you get so...
Tentacle vision, yeah.
Like you get so focused and, you become so, such a part of all of this that you sort of lose perspective. And that's why you get somebody that's new with a fresh set of eyes. And that's exactly what happened there. Peter looked at everything with a fresh set of eyes and he said, hey, this might be a problem. And Dr. Octavius quickly shot him down. And the results were devastating.
You're right. Well, so having said all that, if Ock could get his inhibitor chip deactivated, as we saw in No Way Home, well, even in the end of Spider-Man 2, and he was just going about his everyday business, I think things would be relatively pretty smooth sailing because, like I said, they're basically pretty helpful.
Yeah. You can walk with them, grab with them.
Right. I mean, I think you'd miss out on, it might not be super easy to make friends with forearms on your body. The dating circuit might be a little hard to get back into.
Not to mention, everybody knows who you are because I assume this tragedy would have been all over the news, and you have that bad moxie.
Publicity.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, Jonah's making sure of that. And again, who else are you going to make friends with when you're, like you said, like a much maligned mad scientist with 4 giant robot arms?
Yeah,
frankly, he might just miss out on the friendships with Harry, Larry, Flo, and Mo, as they called them behind the scenes. I don't know. There's definitely pros and cons to this whole thing.
Well, if the inhibitor chip is reactivated, then I would just get the arms removed. I would have to imagine there's a way to do that, because otherwise the whole thing becomes a suicide mission.
It does?
In a way, yes. Like maybe not in a physical sense, but yeah, like you're essentially, if these arms are permanently fused to your nervous system, you're essentially sacrificing your normal life for this mission of making the perpetual sun. So you're sacrificing your life in a way for this project, even if you don't die, which he, almost does.
Mm-hmm.
In a physical sense, he still is sacrificing pretty much any semblance of normality. And that's the cost of this thing. And so if you're, I think, unless he designed some way to get these things disconnected, which it doesn't seem like he did.
No. But then again, they did come in handy in No Way Home, because he's one of the few villains in No Way Home who, once they're cured, keeps his, quote unquote power.
Yeah.
Norman loses his super strength, I presume, actually. I don't know for sure. Sandman loses his sandiness, whatnot, But Ock, it was just the evil AI that was taking him over. Once he was in control of the arms, he kept them, and he still had them, and they proved quite useful.
Yeah. No,
so did his acting skills.
No, that's true. I mean, I think there could be a lot of uses for them. Perhaps he could find work, doing stuff for like a construction company, or lifting heavy objects, at a mine, or
I mean, hopefully he could get back to doing sciencey stuff,
Sure.
that he loves.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's a big social cost to it.
There's always work for moving heavy objects. Maybe he could
True.
he could probably find a job with NASA or something, lifting stuff for maybe he could be an astronaut, go to the International Space Station. I don't know. I'm sure those arms could
That'd
be
be
useful
cool.
in space.
Well, we can only hope the best for Otto Octavius in, his new life.
But I think overall, and just as a person, his personality much better, much more laid back than Norman Osborn.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so he at least has that going for him. So take away the evil inhibitor chip, then Dr. Octavius maybe a bit unorganized, maybe a little bit scatterbrained, but overall pretty good guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with plenty of stuff to keep him occupied on his days off. I think at this point, it's time to move on to our next segment. Is that okay with you, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. Memesa time.
And I gotta say, it's exactly like Otto Octavius said in Spider-Man 2. Being a brilliant quotable line isn't enough to be memeable, young man. It has to work hard. It needs to have a recognizable format that's flexible enough to be used in unexpected contexts. Now, that is, of course, from the scene where Doc Ock was telling Peter all about Spider-Man memes.
Yes.
You remember.
Oh, yeah.
It's a famous scene. It made us all cry. And having said that, give me the blue light, Rosie. Today, we're talking about a simple but effective image macro of Peter in his Bad Pete mode, saying, I was looking through some old photos and it looks very similar. Now, it's a pretty memorable moment, and it's a pretty effective way to compare two different things that seem strangely similar, like maybe one is copying the other, like in this Raimi meme, by Calston Con Rhombos Man, echoing the same sentiment by Anakin Fan 8, comparing the Spider-Man 2 poster of Peter's face, that's half covered with the Spider-Man mask, and the poster for the Venom movie, which is pretty much the same thing, but with Tom Hardy and Venom.
Yeah, that I would say, I mean, I think that's true. However, I feel like, and I can't think of any specific examples, but I'm sure before Spider-Man 2, there was some movie poster that had, half of the face with a mask on and then half their regular face for some movie. I'm sure that sort of setup has been around for a very long time.
Oh, that's fair enough. That's fair enough, Sean. Now, with this meme, you may want to, perhaps joke that two dissimilar things are actually the same, like this Brock post posted by Silent Night, comparing a Google image search of trash with a Google image search of Edward Brock Jr.
That's pretty funny. I like that.
Although, to tell you the truth, Sean, I don't really get that one because I'm just like, they're the same picture. I don't get it.
Well, Spider-Man 3 just is so good for
yeah,
content like that. I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, you just trip over the memes with Spider-Man 3.
You're trash, Brock.
But now, this meme right here that we're talking about, it's also useful to employ when you want to point out, say, a repost or a stolen meme, like in the case of this post by Zumachan77, comparing a Raimi meme posted by John McCuddles to an identical one posted by Screen Rant. Now, speaking of things that seem similar, as we've talked about before on So Much to Tell, there's a lot of parallels throughout the Spider-Man trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, Sam Raimi has a lot of recognizable techniques and imagery that he likes to return to in different ways throughout his filmography. So what I'm going to do, Sean, is show you, say, 3 or 4 screenshots from the Spider-Man movies, featuring some sort of recurring image from the series, and ask you to tell me which movie these come from. They're going to look kind of similar. So,
Okay.
First up, there were a couple of funerals in these movies, 2 Osborns laid to rest. You can describe this image to us and see if you can tell us which one it's from. You pretty much got 2 choices. You can tell us maybe like what it is about this image that tips you off.
Well, I think I don't remember umbrellas in the first movie. I think this one's from Spider-Man 3.
Well done, Sean. Well done. No umbrellas at Norman's funeral. That was part of his will. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Good job, Sean. All right, moving on. This one's a smidge trickier. The Green Goblin loves showing up in mirrors. He does it in all 3 movies. But which one is this image from?
Oh, that's Spider-Man 2.
Whoa. Whoa, Sean, hitting it out of the park. How do you know?
I just remember that scene, but I also know
He just knows.
he's telling Harry to avenge me, and Harry's about to throw the...
Yeah, you're right. You got it. You got it. Yeah. I thought that would be a little trickier, to tell you the truth, Sean. But yeah, it's the image where he's saying,
I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean. Well, now this one I think is the trickiest yet. If I haven't gotten you before, maybe I will now. I almost question whether or not this is fair, but life isn't fair. So here we are. We have an extreme close-up of an eye. Well, 2 eyes, actually. And we know Sam Raimi loves his close-ups of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He loves them. I mean, this could be almost from any Sam Raimi movie, let alone any Spider-Man movie. But which Spider-Man movie is this from?
Okay, I think that's Tobey Maguire's eyes from Spider-Man 1.
What tips you off? Like, what do you think it is?
Well, he just doesn't
happening?
look as older.
Okay.
It kind of looks like his hair's a little bit shorter.
Okay.
So,
Interesting. Well, fair enough, Sean. You're absolutely right. Once again, that's the moment where he's experiencing his spider sense in the high school. When Flash is sneaking up behind him. So, well done. You got them all. I'm really impressed. But now, one last one. Impossible mode. We know Sam Raimi also sure loves his POV shots. What you've been sent now is a New York building. It's just a facade of a building. Probably some sort of swinging POV, but from which movie?
I think I know this because we talked about it at some point. This is Spider-Man 3, I believe. I think you said it was reused from Spider-Man 1, but I think this is from Spider-Man 3, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sorry, Sean. You couldn't be more wrong, because truthfully, it was a bit of a cheat. This is actually a shot from Madam Web, which borrows a couple frames that look very similar to Spider-Man 2.
That's what it was. Shoot.
I would have almost accepted Spider-Man 2, except I wouldn't have. If he would have said Spider-Man 2, I would have said no. But yeah, so technically this is Madam Web borrowing a little bit of Spider-Man 2.
See, I knew it was something borrowing from something, but...
Right, we did talk about this before. I was hoping you wouldn't remember it. The old steel trap. It's nice to know that you really listen, Sean. I appreciate that. So yes, well, with that swinging POV, I think it's time for us to get swinging ourselves. So thanks for swinging by. So much to tell. Pizza time. This episode's tentacle sounds were ripped and isolated by unknownblare and Reisinger Productions. We'll see you in Sweden.
If you're in the neighborhood, you can take 2 buses and a cab to visit us on social media. We're on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, Twitter X, Facebook.
Facebook, yeah, we're on Facebook too. You can visit our Patreon, where you can find our bonus shows, Too Much to Tell, and our animated Spider-Man watch-through series, and help support So Much to Tell.
I can't keep holding this thing up much longer.
Yeah, it's a lot to support.
Right now, all we got is this 20 for the rest of the week.
So, until next time,
Godspeed, Spider fans.
Yay!
All right.
Good one.
All right.
We did it.
Wow. The doctor is out.